Hi everyone, today I'm going to share with you this very refined case coming from Cougar known as the DuoFace Pro RGB. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Cougar to have provided this case for me to share with you guys. This case comes in two colors, which is white or black. The one I'm having is black. Starting at this end, this is full tempered glass, slightly tinted where you can see the interior. At the front, a full tempered glass. And as the name have mentioned, DuoFace. I will explain to you why this case is called DuoFace. At this end over here is a plain black metal cover. At the rear, this is how it looks like. Starting on my top right, this is where you mount your exhaust fan, be it 120mm or 140mm. It has space to cater for either one. Over here is the cutout for your motherboard rear I/O. As you can see, I slide my finger through, I don't get cut. You have a total of 7 PCIe expansion slots over here, and at the side there are additional 3. This is meant for you to mount your GPU vertically. And at the bottom, this is where you place your PSU. Again, I've slide my finger through, I won't get cut. At the bottom of the case where you place your PSU over here, now, right at the bottom there is a dust filter where you can slide it out, and to wash it, once it's done, you can place it back. And make sure it's dry before you place it back. This is the top of the case where you're ushered with a dust filter. And this dust filter is magnetic. And this mesh filter is not only is a mesh itself, but it comes with a nice trim. So be it you orientate this way, or if you were to flip it back, you will capture it in place. Now most of the time we will just remove this off. Reason being, right, at the top is meant for exhaustion of hot air. This is the top I/O area where you start off with the power button, followed by 2 indication LED. One is for power, one is for hard disk, followed by the reset switch. Now this reset switch have dual function, whereby this case comes with a ARGB controller. You can toggle the reset switch to cycle the ARGB effects. Next will be this dual headphone and microphone jack. You'll be provided with a Type-C port, 2 USB 3.0 Type-A port, and a 2.0 USB Type-A port. Looking at the front itself, it does provide a dust filter where it slides out easily. See? You can wash this and to place it back, and you will just slide in very easily. Earlier on, I mentioned to you that this is a dual face. Now, this is one face which you have the tempered glass. Oh, mind you, having the tempered glass, right, does not hinder the airflow. As you can see, it's quite true, and there will be air drawing in through the sides. And if you find that this is still a restriction, you can remove all this tempered glass. By the way, if you want to remove this tempered glass, make sure you hold at the top, and to pull it out, hold it over here. Then to take out the bottom, then this whole piece will be out. And take note that this tempered glass itself, right, there is a Cougar tinted label, whereby at the bottom there is ARGB effect shining through this logo. A neat touch. Now, as mentioned to you, you have taken out the tempered glass and you want more airflow in. This panel here is provided in this case as is a mesh front where you have the logo over here. So we just clip it on, and you have another design where you have all these holes over here, and the diameter of these holes are 5mm in width. Now you might be saying, oh, these holes are very big, so more air going through. That's correct, and there will be more dust. Don't have to worry. As mentioned, there is this dust filter to capture all the dust, and you can wash and to place it back. And this is something which I like about the design, whereby no magnetic mesh front, where you just slide, and as and when you want, you just take it out and to wash. Measurements are as follow. From the front bezel all the way to the back, where it includes the thumb screw, is total of 465mm in width, If you were to exclude the thumb screw from the front all the way to here, the tempered glass this is at 460 millimeter. From the top to the bottom where the feet is 496 millimeter in height. And if you were to calculate from the top all the way without the feet, which is ends over here, is 480. And as for the front width itself, from here to here is 240 millimeter. To remove off the side tempered glass, all is needed, remove this thumb screw here. In fact, it's unscrew this thumb screw. This is captive. Now there is this handle over here, pull towards you, and to lift it up. But before I lift up, right, just to highlight that this tempered glass, in fact, there are magnets which will magnet in place to the case, even if you did not fasten this thumb screw. But when you're done with the system itself, right, make sure you screw this thumb screw back just to secure the tempered glass from falling off. Now, having to say so, right, as I mentioned, pull towards you and to lift it up. Reason to lift it up because there is this catch over here that catch to the bottom. So when you want to place it back, right, just have to align it, catch it back, and this is in place. Let me just put this one side, and I'll remove off the top filter. Now for the front, as I already mentioned to you, right, I have experience dropping the panel, so I would advise you guys, if you purchase this case, right, make sure you pull from the top towards you, I mean the cover, then holding on to the top with one finger, unlatch the bottom, same goes to the bottom, so you're holding on to the panel itself and you will not drop off. As earlier on, right, I dropped off my tempered glass and luckily I didn't break the tempered glass. So make sure you unlatch from the top, hold from the top, then unlatch from the bottom. I'll be taking off this filter too. Now as for the side panel, it's pretty straightforward. There are two thumb screws. Unscrew them. Now before you slide to the side, I would advise you to support it with your thumb and slide it out, then hold it and to leave it. Reason being, right, if you do not support, this is what's going to happen. Okay, let me just align it back first. So if you do not support it, right, and you were to glide, right, see what happened. See, it will just drop. So take note on this. Once you remove this, right, it will expose the cable management area. At the beginning of this content, I mentioned that this case is very refined. These are part of the reason. At the top, this whole section here, in fact, you can remove it, and it's fastened by two screws, which I've already taken out. Now, please note that these two screws, right, are very tiny, so do not lose them. So once you have actually removed the two screws at this ends, you can remove off the top tray. And this allows you to mount your fans, your liquid air radiator before you populate back. Now, another function is at the front, whereby this tray is removable. All is needed is just to remove these two thumb screws. And before you do so, right, make sure that the top is removed first. If not, you're not able to pull this out. Before you take this tray out, right, make sure that all the cables at the back. Now I've already taken out all the cables that's connected to the ARGB controller. If you do not take this cables off from the ARGB cables, right, when you pull the tray, okay, this will just pull through and it will damage the ARGB controller. So I removed all the connection point on the controller, the ARGB controller. So what you need to do, besides removing these two thumb screws, right, just leave it up, and the whole front tray will be removable. See, all the cables are going through the grommet. And this allows you to fasten all your fans, your radiator at this side, your fans at this side, or maybe fans, and to mount it back. And when you mount it back, right, make sure you tidy up this section over here, all the cables, and to tuck all this cable through the grommet and to catch it back. To place the front tray back to the front itself, take a look at the bottom of the tray. There are two guiding hinges, and at the top there are two guiding hinges. Now at the top you'll be able to see two slots over here, the two holes. This is for you to match the top section. And at the bottom there are also two holes which you can't see. So all you need to do is to tidy up all this cable here, tuck all this cable through the rubber grommet, then align the bottom two guiding hinge at the bottom, slot it in first. So this is in place. Now as for the top, right, you can't close it, just leave it up a bit and to catch on it. Then fasten the two thumb screw and this will be in place. Now as for the top, right, as you notice over here, there are four holes over here which are slots for your top tray, which is this. So place it, once you have actually placed all the fans or your AIO radiators and such, angle it at about 45 degrees. Place the guiding hinge on the slots and to place it down. And of course to fasten this. As this is a mid-tower chassis, it allows you to mount a E-ATX motherboard, a ATX motherboard, a M-ATX motherboard, and a ITX motherboard. In the event if you place a E-ATX motherboard, now this cable peeler will have obstruction. So in order for you to place an E-ATX motherboard, you will need to relocate this cable peeler. And all is needed, go to the back, there are two thumb screws. Remove these two thumb screws. And one thing I like about Cougar, what they have done, even if you do remove off the two thumb screws, right, your peeler is still in place. It doesn't fall off. And once this is done, right, what you need to do is to relocate this cable peeler. You can take it out. And why is it not falling? Because there is a guided hinge over here which goes to the slot. This is towards this end, and as mentioned, if you want to place E-ATX, right, you got to move it out, which is the first slot. So having said so, right, I will align this to that slot. See, this is in place. And once it's done, right, you can place your E-ATX motherboard, and not forgetting, once you've done that, place the two thumb screws back in place so that this peeler here will be secured, as in this peeler here. And of course you can choose to do all your cables connecting to your motherboard first, then to place this peeler is the same. Now another neat feature about this peeler itself, right, it has this support GPU bracket, whereby when you slot a heavy graphic card, you can adjust the height to support your graphic card and to tighten it with this screw at the bottom. So once you have tightened this, right, okay, this bracket here, we should not move. Okay, just to show you, once this is tightened, see, this should not move, and it will support your GPU. As for fan allocation, in this case itself, starting from the top, you're able to mount 320mm fans or 240mm fans. At the front, you have 320mm fans or 240mm fans. At the bottom, you're only able to mount 220mm fans. And at the rear, you have a choice of placing a 120mm fan or a 140mm fan. As for liquid AIO radiator or radiator, be the top or the front, they both share the same configuration, whereby you can place a 120, 140, 240, 280 or even a 360. As for the rear, you'll be able to place a 120 or a 140. This is the bottom of the case itself, where you place the bottom fans. Now Cougar have done the correct thing, in fact the right thing, whereby you see all this is protruding out. Now there's a reason for this. I've witnessed a lot of bottom fans whereby when you mount it at the bottom, right, where you do not have this, the fan In fact, it's flush to the case itself where the ventilator holes are. When cool air is drawn in by the bottom fans, right, it will cause noise. So having a gap before you place the fan, as you can see here, there's a gap between the fan and the case itself. This will reduce noise. Another thing I like to highlight and hope that Cougar will improve on, whereby I hope that the tempered glass is not covered fully but till here, so that at this bottom section, right, probably they can do mesh instead of having the whole tempered glass. Reason being, right, when the bottom fan is drawing air, right, this side helps a lot, because right now all the cool air is heavily depend on at the front to draw in order for the bottom fans to draw the air to your components internally. Another thing about the front fan tray itself, I forgot to mention that there are holes over here. So when you mount the fans itself, right, when you want to change out to your own fans, you can tuck this through these holes. And when you gather all the cables neat and tidy, right, you will go through the rubber garment of the case itself. So this is another neat function which is done by Cougar. As you can see here, I mounted a E-ATX motherboard, and there are gaps over here. As I mentioned, this pillar you can shift, so there are plenty of space for you to plug your cables through, not an issue. Now, looking at the top, there are gaps over here. This is 55mm in gap. And if you wonder, can I place a 280 liquid AIO? Well, this is Arctic, which is famous for the thickness of the radiator and the fan. Right now, I'm just going to place it in. See, it flushes. Now, reason for this, right? This case is built unique, as in like Cougar have done it right, because they not only give you the gap over here, which is 55mm tall, which give you more clearance on the ramps to place, and over at the top tray, right, take a look, there is a gap here too, which is 45mm in gap. So having all these gaps, right, pushing this towards the front of the case itself, right, your ramps, when you plug it in, right, there won't be any hindrance even if you do place tall ramps. See? It fit nicely without any issue. Another question you might be asking, hey Cleo, there is a new liquid AIO coming from Lianli known as the Galahad 2 Trinity Performance, and it has a width of 130 instead of the 120. Well, earlier on I've shown you I fitted the 280, which is 140, so this is 130. It will be able to fit, not an issue. Let me just show you. See, this is the Galahad Trinity 2 Performance, and it fit nicely. And as mentioned to you, right, see the RAM clearance? There are no blockage, so whatever tall ramps you want to place in, right, not an issue. You can just place it in. Now, as for Aircooler itself, as this case itself, the width is 240, so after mounting the motherboard itself, right, you still have a lot of clearance. In fact, on their website, it's stated as 190mm in height for your air cooler, so there are plenty of space for you to mount big massive air cooler. As for GPU mounting, it's either you place it horizontally or vertically. Now, when you do vertically, right, as you can see over here, I've replaced the riser on the standoffs. There are two standoffs which is provided in this case itself, so all you need to do is just to put these two standoff and to place your riser cable. Then you'll be able to slot your graphic card. This is how it looks like when I mount the GPU vertically, and this is a 4070 Ti from Gigabyte. Now, if you are using a 4090, right, take note on the length itself. Now, this is a 4070 whereby the length is 336, But if you are using a 4090, right, it will exceed, which is 342. Now, though this interior of the case length is 390, right, I would say that do not go beyond 360, which 342, 350 will be okay, as in like the length of the card. And as for the height of the card, do take note too, as this is a 4070, so it's slightly shorter. If you are using card which has 150 millimeter in height, you will need to move the rear fan up a bit. It will not be a hindrance, but it's just that you will need to move this rear fan. Now, speaking of which, right, if you are mounting it vertically, right, there are some disadvantages. First off, you are not able to mount either of the bottom fans. This is one. Two, between the gap on the surface of the graphic card to the tempered glass itself, right, is only 10 millimeter space. So take note on this. Besides this, if you're mounting it vertically, right, as there are no bottom fans, I would not encourage you to mount the radiator or the liquid air at the front. Mount it at the top. So at the front, just purely put fans so that you will draw cool air. At least it will cool your graphic card and the back of your motherboard component. So take note on this. This is the other side of the case where you expose the cable management area. Now, I've deliberately taken off all this cable, which is fastened on this 3 Velcro stripe, and there's a reason why. Cougar have actually done a very good mechanism on this Velcro stripe to be fastened and to place the cable on. I will talk about it later. Now on my right, there are 2 caddy over here, which is meant for your SSD 2.5 inch. All is needed is just to remove this thumb screw and you can take out the caddy. And this is where you place your 2.5 inch SSD, turn over and screw the SSD in place. So once it's in place, right, all you need is just to place it back at the 2 slots over here and to fasten the thumb screw. There are a total of 8 cable tie points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And on my left lower side, this is the ARGB controller, whereby you make use of the reset switch at the top, or if you choose not to use, you can just unplug the reset switch and to use it on your motherboard as reset. Now, speaking about the Velcro stripe itself, right, why I mentioned that it is a good mechanism, and Cougar have put some effort to place this, nice piece of pillar. Let me just show you. In the event sometime when you are doing up certain case, right, whereby this Velcro stripe just drop off, then you will need to slot it back. And when you slot it back, right, it's not this wide. I'll zoom in later. You will probably need to go through the cable tie points like this. So it's kind of like clumsy. Okay, right now I'm going to zoom in. With this, say, right, the pillar that they have designed, you can easily just fit in, see, without any issue. There are plenty of gaps, so you can just slot your Velcro stripe anytime. Then you can just fasten it. So a well thought of design. And also take note, the big cutout over here, and these are very round. See, as I glide my finger, it doesn't cut. Same goes to the 24 pin cable going through here. These are all rounded. At the bottom section of the cable management area, you will see on my left, this is the hard disk caddy. And of course, this area is for your PSU. Starting off with the hard disk itself, this is only meant for you to mount your 3.5 inch hard disk. And you can't mount your 2.5 inch SSD. Speaking of which, this cage here is removable. All is needed is to remove this thumb screw, which is located over here. Once you've done that, right, with these 2 slots over here, and pull. See, it's out. Now, in the event you want more space at the back, you can relocate this hard disk cage. Remove it off totally and to align towards the front. See, this can be done. Or if you choose to have more airflow and not using any 3.5-inch hard disk, right, you can just totally remove this off, and it will give you more airflow and more space for you to fiddle with your cables. Speaking of which, for the PSU area, right, I've tested a 160mm length PSU, a 180mm length PSU. You can fit, even with the cage at its original position, you can fit a 200mm length PSU. Reason being, right, over at this here, right, this is 200mm. So you have plenty of clearance. Let me just place this back in. Oh, place the wrong. Make sure you place the correct direction, as in like this is facing the top. So as I mentioned to you, right, at its original position, from here to here is 200. You still have gap over here. Now these are the cables which I earlier on showed you on the Velcro stripe. I deliberately taken them off just to show you the orientation of which cable is for which. Now starting off on the back, this is a USB Type A version 2.0, and this is the cable which you will need to plug, which mentioned over here, USB. This is for you to plug to your motherboard 2.0 USB header. Then followed by this two orange, which is a 3.0 USB Type A, which is this. This will be connected to your motherboard. Next will be a Type C, which is meant for this. Again, this is plugged to your motherboard. Then followed by the combo headphone and microphone jack, which is this, that says HD audio. This is meant for you to plug to your motherboard again. Now coming to the reset switch, which is this. As mentioned to you, if you do not want to make use of the reset switch to set the function, as in like the ARGB effects on your fans and on the label at the front, okay, just to show you, I've deliberately taken this controller off from the back, which you see earlier on my lower right of the case itself. Now see, it says reset, or should I say key. So by placing this reset switch over here, and when you toggle the reset switch, right, it will control this controller to cycle the ARGB effects. And of course, this controller itself, when you are plugging the reset switch, there is a momentum where you toggle and you will just bypass the controller, and you can make use of your motherboard ARGB utility. But this, at the other end of the controller, right, you need to plug this to your motherboard ARGB, which is a 5V 3-pin connector, and this you have to plug to your SATA from your PSU, so that it will supply power to your controller. Now next will be all this LED, which is meant for your hard disk, which will be here, and the power LED, which is here. Then the last but not least, this is the power switch, which is this. So all this cable that I show you over here are meant for you to plug to your motherboard. These are the accessories that come with the case itself. You have the instruction manual, which I like the pictogram, nicely done. 6 cable tie. You have total of 8 long screws. These are meant for your bottom fans. 3 additional standoff for your motherboard. Two long standoff. These are meant for your vertical mount GPU, which you mount this standoff at the bottom of the case, which I showed you earlier. Total of 8 2.5-inch SSD screws, which looks like this. Then 8 3.5-inch hard disk screw, which look like this. And total of 17 motherboard screws and miscellaneous. And this is the standoff bolt, whereby you will find it difficult to mount this hexagonal shape on the case itself. So this is to assist you, where you solder it here, and the other end, this is the Philip. Then you just screw on the case itself. Besides this, you are given a splitter. This is a fan splitter, but these are not PWM. It's only meant for 3-pin fans, which this case have provided 4 fans, 3 at the front and 1 at the rear. And these fans, right, each end has a connector which looks like this. This is for the ARGB and this is for the fan load. So with this splitter, right, you can't daisy chain from fan to fan as they don't have the daisy chain mechanism. So you will need to use this splitter, where you connect one end and followed by others. So you have 3 total. And once you have done, right, you'll then be able to plug this end to your motherboard. My thoughts about this case itself, the first impression is very unique, based on the fact that the front, I'm able to change the tempered glass to mesh filter that draws in more cool air in, and without worrying the dust that is going in, because there is this mesh filter here which is easily accessed. Same goes to the top or the bottom. Now besides this, right, the interior itself is very spacious, which I like a lot. And talk about spacious itself, right, the fan arrangement of this case is fantastic, or even the radiator itself. As the top, front and the rear, you can place 120mm fans or 140mm fans without any issue. And they have done a good job on the gap calculations between the as I show you, the radiator itself and the gap over here. So when you place the motherboard here, right, and to place RAMs, right, the RAMs will not be blocked by your radiator, and you can place high RAMs. I mean, it's like high profile RAMs, not an issue. Next thing I like about it is actually this physical cable peeler, where it comes with a GPU support bracket. Why do I say so? Because this is movable, and good thing about it is that when I remove the thumb screw off from the, which is holding this peeler itself, right, it doesn't drop off. It is still intact, still in place. So that's a neat touch. Next thing will be the cutout, whereby they are not sharp, where I can glide my fingers. See, no cuts. Same goes to this grommet areas. Now another thing I would like to talk about is in fact the bottom section here. Now these are good, as the light is protruding up, so that when you place the fan itself, right, it's not going against the case itself. There is a gap, so this will prevent noise. But the only thing that I want to talk about is that the side, I hope that they did a tinted glass, or should I say the tempered glass, right, from here to here, and that's it. And at the bottom, right, probably do some mesh so that you can draw cool air from your bottom fans at the side. Because right now the only cold air that's coming from the bottom, right, is drawing from the front, which is kind of limited. So that's the only flaws that I wish that it will improve on. Now next thing is actually on the vertical mount for the GPU itself. If you intend to do this, right, I would not advise you to place a liquid air at the front. It should be all fans at the front to draw cool air in so that you can cool your GPU, because your GPU is quite near to the tempered glass. And next, I would like to talk about the rear here, where I mentioned that I like this Velcro stripes a lot. Reason being, right, Cougar have done a good job on doing all these pillars over here, where you can just slot your Velcro stripe through with ease instead of this kind of so-called the cable tie points, which I find is very clumsy. Next bonus point will be the ARGB controller. This is a good thing whereby I can control the ARGB effect using the reset switch. Because sometimes some of the users might not like background running on ARGBs and stuff on their system. So a physical controller will be good. Next will be the space on the PSU itself. As I mentioned to you, right, you can place max length of 200, not a problem. You still have some gaps for you to feeder your cables to route through to your motherboard. The more I feeder with this case, the more I grow to like it. Not just because of the uniqueness of the outlook, but with the functions, the modularity, and the space of the case itself to work with, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna do a system on this case itself and to share with you my experience with the build and to show you all the ARGB effects and such. With this said, I'd like to thank Cougar to have provided this case for me to share with you guys. And for those of you who are actually new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.